Good evening and welcome to this edition of Newsnight. My name is Charles Odongtho, and with me on the Newsnight this evening, as usual, is Andrew Mwenda. He is the CEO of the independent news magazine and calls himself Old Man of the Clan. Andrew, you're most welcome back. It's a new week. How are you doing with it?
One of these days, I'm going to box you by saying he calls himself, I am the Old Man of the Clan.
You will be taken in.
If we go on the streets and you ask people,
yes,
they will say, people meet me in the street, they say, Old Man of the Clan, everybody respects it. You, being an insolent, impudent little brat, you refuse to accept.
Including people who say, the young old man. Now, how do the two relate?
You see, these are these impudent brats like you. But
okay, anyhow, we shall discuss that out of this, short time that we have. Very quickly, Andrew. Last week, of course, 10 minutes is usually not enough to discuss these things broadly. But last week, the Speaker of Parliament called for dialogue, advised that it's important that the different political players go into a dialogue in order to, promote the multi-party dispensation we are in. What did you make of that?
I think that, first of all, Kadaga was making a very good point. First of all, there is already a dialogue between the government and the all opposition parties called IPOD. Are you aware of IPOD? Yes. But now, I want to tell you, it is very in every democratic system, those who are in a government and those who are out of government, they must be able to constantly interact and discuss their differences and agree to disagree or find areas of agreement. In 2011, me, Andrew Mwenda, Old Man of the Clan, and Colonel Dinkutu initiated discussions, or at least discussions before discussions, so that we can arrange a meeting where NRM and the opposition parties, President Museveni and President Besigye, would participate. So I'm going to reveal for you.
What was driving you?
As nationalists, patriots, people who are committed to promoting the democratic process. You see, in a democracy, those who, if you disagree with Museveni and say he's a murderer, then you must go to the bush and fight him. Because you
say he's corrupt.
No, if you say he's a mass murderer, he's destroying the country, you cannot have dialogue. If you are going to run a democratic system, the language you use in a democratic system cannot be this kind of belligerent warrior language. So President Museveni should stop calling Besigye a terrorist, whatever he calls him. And Besigye should not call the president a dictator. Exactly. Both sides need to use a language. You see, if I went somewhere and called you a thug, it will be very difficult for me to have with you to have dialogue. True. So we felt that we need to establish a modicum of understanding between both sides, and the president and Besigye should participate. Now I'll tell you.
Why did it fail?
Listen, I'm going to explain to you. Because the country needs to know this. One, Besigye sent conditions to the president, and I will read them for you. One, he said, if these talks take place, there must be release of all political prisoners. Remember, they had arrested many people doing walk to work. Yes. Two, there must be a neutral moderator for these talks. And we identified former President Mkapa of Tanzania. Yes. I did so. And both the president and Besigye agreed to him. Three, there must be a guarantor for the implementation of the outcomes of these discussions. We identified the Kata Center.
Yes.
Four, there must be a review of the elections. Five,
what does the review mean? What did the review mean?
Because Besigye has a claim
that the government of Museveni is not legitimate.
They have been rigging elections.
Yes.
You understand?
Yeah.
So there must be review of previous elections, the previous election of 2011, and to see whether it was not stolen.
Yeah, proceed on the other
Five,
point.
there must be broader participation of the mass media, political parties, churches, and other institutions.
Opinion leaders and all that.
And finally said these talks must finally focus on electoral reforms. I, Andrew Mwenda, were given these conditions of Besigye by Conrad Nkutu, speaking on behalf of Besigye, and I later met Besigye on this matter, and he raised these issues.
And he agreed to all of them.
President Yoweri Museveni. President Yoweri Museveni agreed to all of them, and he raised 4 issues.
What were his demands? He
said, 1, Besigye must renounce violence if you're going to have dialogue.
Okay.
2, he must concede defeat in the previous election, because he's saying
wasn't that countering the review,
no,
the demand for review?
He's saying there is a criminal government. How do you discuss with criminals? You can say concede defeat, but I'll come to
okay.
3, suspend walk to work, because I was walk to work. 4, he must admit to committing a treason. That he must admit
to having a capital offense.
Yes.
That was also.
Listen to this. Yeah. I took these. They were taken to Besigye. Besigye rejected all of them. A, on renouncing violence, he said, for him, use of violence is enshrined in the Constitution. It is his right. Yeah. B, concede defeat. He cannot concede defeat because he won the election. C, suspend walk to work. He said, me, I'm a participant in walk to work. I'm not the organizer. It's F or C who are organizers. 4, he said he cannot commit treason. I took them back to the president. He never committed treason.
So that is how all these things faltered?
Yes. No. I took these messages rejection to the president. The president said, announcing violence is hiding behind the constitution. Said, Mwenda, I am willing to meet with the message in spite of this rejection to renounce violence. 2, concede defeat. Let's first hold it. Suspend walk to work. Okay. Let me ignore that. 3, treason. I have ignored it. Then the president said, okay, on conceding, let him not concede defeat, but let him accept
that this is a legitimately elected
to negotiate with.
Okay.
And
that's a good context.
Please, I'm giving you very important information because people don't know.
Yeah.
The president and I wrote a statement which message I can give, which was, I am the one who wrote it. He can issue to the press and say, because of the importance of these talks, I am willing to recognize the legitimacy of this government for the good of these talks. By the way, the president warned me when I went to him. He said, Mwenda, Besige does not want any talks.
Beautiful. Now.
And Besige is going to undermine these talks. So I don't want to have any roadblocks in the way. I have allowed.
So this is, Andrew, this is a good context.
Hold a second. I went back to Besige and Besige refused. This small issue of saying that it's a legitimate government with which we can negotiate. He wanted to go there saying we have criminals. We are going to have a
okay, Andrew, it's good you have given us a good context to that there was something on the table. But don't also sound like you are taking a side because you were involved and you know what actually happened. Okay, fine. Let's just take it from what happened on Thursday last week during the State of the Nation. Yes.
I have already explained to you.
Yes.
At the highest level of state. I held meetings, I can't count, perhaps 20 with the president.
Okay. Andrew, that is granted. That is granted. I have understood that and I've appreciated it. I'm saying, in the context that is now coming up, do you think maybe your involvement and Nkutu's at that time, there was a different time frame and maybe it was not ripe for a discussion? No, do you think another one like Kadaga is calling now?
Yeah. And I know there are many leaders of the opposition in Uganda, great men and women. They are great people, really. I respect them. They need to take that mantle of leadership because Besige proved to me that he was so rigid a politician. He was not willing to make, if Nelson Mandela jailed for 27 years, his wife
compromised,
beaten, he had to recognize the legitimacy of apartheid and begin a discussion with them and say, I trust this man, the clerk, which finally led to freedom. Why couldn't Besige say there must be some degree? I am Mwenda. I could say himself on this show every day. If he could allow me to be his emissary to discuss this very important, vital thing. So, leaders of the opposition, please,
we're coming out.
There is a chance that we can have a dialogue in this country, that the different shades of opinion can meet together. But for that meeting to take place, the language that has to be used
should not be belligerent.
And how we approach each other, even when we disagree, must be respectful and courteous. Then the platform for a proper dialogue will have been laid.
Did you reach Mkapa on this? What did he say? And when it failed?
He was willing. First of all, there are many people who suggested they don't want to go into the details. Do you understand? Besige was uncomfortable, or some of them, Museveni was uncomfortable, but finally, Mkapa agreed. The president agreed to Mkapa. Besige agreed to Mkapa.
That was a beginning point.
Was leaked by I don't know how it leaked into the press.
I was actually told you were one of those who leaked it.
I wish I did. But you see, Besige called the press conference and said there had been nothing that was happening. Given that I had held a meeting with Besige myself to discuss this matter with his wife Winnie and the late Samuel Njuba and Ruzindana, when he came out and lied openly to the public, I realized that there are problems with this government. But there's a serious problem with the leadership of Besige.
There is a problem with this country, and yet we need peace. And for me, I think I wouldn't compromise. I think that we should support
right now,
that Kadaga's call of last week.
I've given the public the best context because I've given the best details. I was an actor in this process. And people in Uganda must support these talks, but I was impressed, I must say, that the president of this country, in spite of all his differences with Besige, was willing to advance the cause of political dialogue.
Well, that was Andrew Mwenda. He is the CEO of the Independent magazine. My name is Charles Odongtho, and that was the Newsnight.